Let's go ahead and look how we would write the range of a graph using notation. So for this graph right here, we are going to look to see how I can write the range. It appears that we have an horizontal asymptote, and I will draw that in. And of course, it's actually along the x-axis. So if I draw a horizontal asymptote along the x-axis, that is the same as writing y equals 0. That is our horizontal asymptote. So our horizontal asymptote is y equals 0, which means, remember, the range is all possible output values. So in this case, y cannot equal 0 for the range. How will we write that if we want to use notation? So y cannot equal 0 in our range. Now, if you look at the graph, there is nothing below below 0, and the graph extends to above 0 and going up to the top forever. So if you recall last video, I mentioned anything that extends forever goes to infinity. Whereas on the left side, when we're looking at it, the graph is going towards 0. Because what are we looking at? We are looking the range, and the range is always looking at the graph up and down. So don't confuse it with the domain. The domain is always left to right, and the range is always up and down. So in this case, we can simply say that the range is just y is greater than 0, where y is an element of all real numbers. So let's go ahead and use the notation in Delta Math. Let me erase this and go up here. Answer type. What do we want to write? I will use interval notation. So we can use our round bracket because it doesn't include 0, and it goes up to infinity, so we will have 2 rounded brackets right here. So on the left, it is 0 for y. Remember, we're looking at the range, so it's always up and down, and then continuing up is infinity. So our interval is between 0 to infinity. In other words, look at the range, it goes from 0 and up. Let's go ahead and submit this and see the notation. So let's take a look. We have a horizontal asymptote, as we mentioned, at y equals 0. The y value goes forever up, and so the range is just 0, infinity, or simply put, it's just y is greater than 0. Let's go ahead and look at another problem, see what we get. Let me erase this. Okay, what do you think this one would be? Because remember, range, we are looking up and down. So if we look up, the graph continues upwards, so it is going forever up, and then down, it also continues going forever down, negative infinity. So in this case, we would say it's all real numbers because there are no restrictions on the range. So we can say that the interval is all real numbers, or we can actually write it in different ways. So let's take a look to see how we can rewrite all real numbers in different ways. So all real numbers, this is a cubic function. We haven't learned that yet. It will go infinitely up and infinitely down, and it is obviously all real numbers. Another way we can write it is round bracket, negative infinity, because we always start with the lower bound, and positive infinity. So this is another way of saying all real numbers. All right, let's go ahead and look at another type of graph. Okay, this one's interesting. All right, let's go ahead and take a look how we will write the range here. Remember, we're only looking at range, which means we are looking up and down. Okay, so what is our lowest value for the range? It looks like the range is starting at -1, and the important question to ask, does it include -1? And if you said yes, then you are right. So we start at -1, and then you could see the graph just extends forever upwards. So definitely going to infinity, starting at -1. So you can write square bracket starting at -1, comma, infinity, round bracket. That would be one way to write it. Another way to write it is make sure you write y because it is the range. You can just say y is greater than or equal to -1. All right, so let's go ahead and submit this and see. Oh, we didn't write it here. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this interval. I'm going to write a square bracket and a rounded bracket. So it starts at -1 and then goes on to infinity, because remember, we're looking up and down for the range. So let's go ahead and submit this. And we can see that the minimum value is -1 for y, and it goes forever up. And we have the range is starting at -1 and then going on to infinity, or you can write it as y is greater than or equal to -1. All right, so go ahead and practice writing the range using this notation.